The NLC has finally bowed to political pressure by accepting 70,000 naira as minimum wage. Let me explain. As we know, the NLC, the Nigerian Labour Congress, and the federal government has been in a long battle about the minimum wage. Let me quickly take your mind back. The NLC, the Nigerian Labour Congress, initially suggested 464,000 naira as the minimum wage. Then the federal government suggested 40,000 naira as minimum wage, which resulted the NLC going on strike that made them shut down the national grid, the airports, that lasted just 24 hours. So after 24 hours of that strike, the federal government called them for dialogue and asked them to call off the strike, which they said they suspended or relaxed the strike. According to them, they didn't call it off, they relaxed it, which they never resumed again. During the dialogue, the federal government offered 57,000 naira and later increased it to 60,000 naira. The NLC refused and threatened another strike, but the federal government told them to calm down, which they did anyway. So after so many weeks of dialogue without result, the NLC later came to federal government and told them that they can now pay 250k as minimum wage, but the federal government said no. Instead, they want to add something to that 60,000 naira they agreed initially. Few days later, the federal government now added something on that 20,000 naira, which they later add 2,000 naira. That was the something they said that they will add on that 60,000 naira, which is 2,000 naira. So since then, nothing had been heard from the federal government and the NLC. Everywhere was quiet. We didn't know what was happening until now. So the new update now is that the federal government led by Bola Tinubu has approved 70,000 naira as the new minimum wage. The NLC has also confirmed that they've agreed to collect 70,000 naira coming from 250,000 naira. The question here is, how did the federal government convince the NLC to agree 70,000 naira, abandoning the 250,000 naira they insisted earlier?
Well, we were here last week and we are here now. What they have announced in terms of the amount of 70,000 happen to be where we are now. But the good thing about it is that we will not wait for another 5 years to come and review. Rather than accepting on a figure that you wait for 5 years, it's like you have to now negotiate even 2 times within 5 years with a view to going up. That is one of the reasons why we decided to reach where we are today.
What transpired in today's meeting, the president made a pronouncement of 70,000 naira that by next week that they should put finishing touches and do the transmission to the National Assembly.
But Nigerians are reacting to this. Nigerians are saying that 70,000 naira is too small because 70,000 naira cannot even buy a bag of rice. Imagine earning 70,000 naira in a month that cannot buy a bag of rice, that cannot even stock food in your house. It cannot even buy foodstuff that can fill up your fridge. So Nigerians are blaming the NLC that they should have insisted on 100,000 naira at least. It also interests you that cost of living, price of foodstuffs has gone up almost 150% within the space of 1 year. A loaf of bread used to be 500 naira before, is now 1,700 naira depending on the area you're buying from. Oh, peak milk used to be 250 naira before, is now 750 naira up to 1,000 naira now. The normal spaghetti you buy before 300 naira is now 900 naira up to 1,000 naira now. The rick of beans that used to buy 350 naira before is now 1,100 naira up to 1,500 naira depending on where you're buying from. The most painful about this thing is that Gary, the poor man's friend, Gary that will always be there for you no matter how poor you are, no matter how broke you are. Gary went from 800 naira per pint to 2,000 naira now. Even the poor man cannot even afford to drink Gary. Anyway, let me stop talking so that this video will not be too long. Tell me what you think in the comment section about this 70,000 naira new minimum wage. But before you think, don't forget to
enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.